right, you are watching This League. Ryan, we just can't get all three of us together in the same place. We're busy people. Ryan Sakura is off doing things, I think, with the Arizona Snake baseball team. But I'm Peyton Gallagher with John Morrissey, the Oracle. He's in New York. New York. John, there is no USL team in New York. There is, in fact, though, a USL team elsewhere in the country, specifically Sacramento, California. They were very good this weekend. We'll get into it straight away. 5-0. Feels like if you look at the underlying numbers and see Sacramento is top of the league in touches in the box and shots on target, and they're not scoring goals, and they're really boring watch, it felt like, though, at some point this would happen, and it happens to Las Vegas. They win 5-0. How did that happen?
So I think off the top, I look at the lineup. I see Nick Ross coming in for the first time as a starter since March. And that felt like the singular factor, if you're pointing to one thing that elevated this team. And that's not to disparage Rodrigo Lopez or Luis Felipe, but I think Ross brought all the ingredients that Neil Collins needed in that midfield to make things sing. The way that Sacramento presses, the way they really want to get five players up in the attacking half, you need a counterbalance, somebody that can find space, know where the next pass is coming to be able to cover that ground is really paramount. And Ross did that brilliantly against the Lights. And to an extent, I think Las Vegas kind of played into it. Like that's a team under Antonio Nocerino that really wants to build out short and invites that style of pressure that the Republic brought. But take nothing away. Like Sacramento executed unbelievably well. You saw Jack Gurr and Michelle Benitez from the wingback spots basically getting into the final third as pressers. That's essentially unheard of in the USL, and it shut down Las Vegas, created the turnovers, and let them control this game. But yeah, none of it happens without Ross. So that's my kind of headline takeaway here.
I think it's the thing that we've been. I mean, you pointed this out weeks ago whenever I brought up the fact that I didn't feel like in midfield there was enough of a force connecting that back three or back four at the time as they kind of figured out what they were going to do this year with the frontline players. There wasn't that control that they needed to play the way that, you know, for all intents and purposes, down the years, you look at the Tampa Bay teams of old, how the Sacramento team theoretically should be playing this year. There is no Lewis Hilton in this team. Nick Ross maybe embodies that role a little bit in this game. And I think like it is the consummate example of one player just doing enough of like everything to allow everybody else to play their best game. That's what kind of this felt like.
There was a sequence right in the run up to their first goal where Sacramento is possessing. They're letting players like Blake Willie and Christian Pirano interchange across lines, and that's forcing Las Vegas narrow. By the time Ross finally gets a touch at the base of the midfield, he sees the fact that the Lights have lost their shape. He literally points towards the right, tells Jared Timmer, dude, you got to overlap, gets Timmer the ball, and that's the assist that gives this team the lead. He's like a coach on the field, and you hear that phrase thrown around. Ross is embodying it in a way that you rarely see, and it brought that level of composure and organization going both ways. That's almost hard to quantify, but clearly is invaluable.
Yeah, and I think that is doubly important for a team that coming into the year we said, okay, we think, and the irony of this is that Switchbacks has had real problems at fullback this year, which none of us expected. But we came into the year, I think, saying Louisville, Sacramento, Colorado Springs. So those are the teams that have those wingback, fullback types better than everybody else in the league. The downside of that is that you have to get a little bit more from your midfield players organizationally to allow those players to influence the game going forward. Jack Gurr is the best attacking fullback that this league has ever seen. Full stop. It's not really up for debate to me. This really, for the first time in so long, kind of felt like Jack Gurr being Jack Gurr again, and I think that had so much to do with Nick Ross being on that side, allowing for them to have the organization for him to step up. And like you said, join up in the press, get involved. It just, overall, the thing that I wrote down is this felt like the first kind of expressive performance from Sac. It felt like the first game where we actually got to see their personality this year.
Yeah, you think about their signature win up to this point. It's that opening week game against New Mexico. that was very much defined by the counter. Like that's not Neil Collins' ball at the end of the day. This was like you felt that identity, you felt them making that mark. I think a player I do want to shout out is Sebastian Herrera up
Yes.
top, a physical weapon, somebody who's willing to battle, really put in the legwork press wise as well. But I know we talk a lot about territory and control of that. The way that he contested duels, let Sacramento build out in a certain manner, and really proved to be an active runner in the final third. I thought he was terrific and was kind of the spearhead on top of everything for this team.
Yeah, and just looking kind of at the form book for him, that's 2 goals in the last four. That is 4 goals all competitions, including the U.S. Open Cup win against El Floralito, RIP, God rest them.
You
Um,
know, boys.
always. 4 goals in six, though, all comps. And a player that for multiple years has had the opportunity now in Sacramento to maybe grab that number 9, allow Cicerone to be that second striker type in the pocket, hasn't really ever happened consistently. Feels like maybe he's fit and healthy and confident in his body for the first time with Sacramento and gives them that blunt object at the front. I I'm hesitant to commit fully to the idea that he can be the front man for this team over an extended period of time. But this is the best level of striker play that Sacramento has gotten in a long time in terms of sheer number 9 play, correct?
You think about the profile he brings, certainly like this is the model of player you want in
Yes.
the specific iteration of the Sacramento system. Like if you want a guy who in a vacuum is a finisher, I'm probably going Trevor Amon, but Herrera kind of has the everything else to his game that just makes sense in context.
Yeah. And that's 2 goals in 2 games for Trevor Amon as well, correct?
Sure, sure. Yeah.
One of them being a penalty, in all fairness. But another player that it feels like was kind of on the outside of the squad looking in, and Neil Collins has found a way to make him useful as that game changer late in games. I've talked a lot about I could see Trevor Amon being useful to another team, maybe a team in this state in Oakland that could use a number 9 of his profile. I think he's a really high quality player. Um, but with that said, completely different striker to Herrera, and again speaks to maybe the ceiling that you saw. I haven't given the credit to with Sacramento down the line of okay, this is how this plan comes to fruition, right? And I'm shocked at how quickly Nick Ross seems to have materialized the whole thing. But credit to you, you called this weeks ago.
I mean, he's somebody dating back to his El Paso days who I've really rated as a player and kind of that glue guy. Under the Mark Briggs reign, even last year, Ross was somebody who was playing as almost a number 10 a lot of the time, camping in the half space. But he's got that ability to sit deeper, really set the tone. That's what we saw. And I think the versatility, what you mentioned with the relationship with Gurr, all of that paid off in spades.
Yeah. So that's all the top line stuff, and I think that's the stuff that is very obvious looking at this game. Probably the most important stuff to address. How Nick Ross gave them that engine, that tooth, most importantly, the organization. Something that you have been very quick to point out this year as well, though, John, something that I think we all are in agreement. I'll speak for Ryan on this. The, I guess, blooming, finally, of Christian Pirano. 59 touches in this game. But moreover, when you factor in the involvement that they got from both pocket tens, and Jameson gives them 63 touches in this game, that is a kind of conduit that gives them the offensive ceiling. It's not going to be 5 goals every game. If you couple that with a press that is effective, involving the wingbacks, setting traps in the wide areas, and then additionally, also factors for the just overall directness that they want to play with, the identity in that, that actually is appealing to me. That is probably, again, unlocking a ceiling in Sacramento that didn't look like it was going to appear in the early part of the year offensively.
Yeah, kind of tackling both of the pocket tens and starting with Pirano, there's a certain drive and progressiveness to his game. Like as soon as he's getting a touch, he wants to go at you, he wants to go forward. Given how transitional this match was, given the way that they forced turnovers and quickly needed to go from defensive mindset into breaking teams down in the final third, Pirano's quick feet, his ability to get past defenders and play useful passes was so key. And the guy is really a bulldog in the press,
Mhm.
somewhat of a diminutive player if you just look at him, but never gives up with the effort. On the Jameson side of things, it's a luxury to have a player of his quality that can just step in if Russell Cicerone isn't available. To me, he's really additive in the press. He brings a level of defensive intensity that, given Cicerone's injury history, given the fact that he's getting up there in years a little bit, maybe can't match.
Mhm.
I'm not here to say that long term Jameson will supplant Russell Cicerone in the lineup, but I think it's a conversation that Neil Collins would be wise to think about at this point. Maybe Cicerone can come into games as a number nine if needed. Maybe he's a killer off the bench. I'm not here to answer that question, but I am here to say Jameson is the real deal in what he's providing for Sacramento right now.
I think we should actually try and answer that question because I think it's an interesting one. Because Cicerone is a better player than Jameson. He is a more. I don't think that's unfair to say, right? Like, it's one of the all-time most accomplished goal scorers in this league and has been the front man for Sacramento basically since he arrived. And they've come up short in that time, but that's not been for his lack of trying. He scored the goal in the Western Conference Final that they ended up losing to Rising. Like, he's always come through for them. And as I evaluate this, him and Jameson bring very different things that bring different things out of this front group for Sacramento. On the whole, do you think there's any validity to the argument that maybe more of a drop a line player like Jameson that can connect the play, give you a little bit more balance, allow for a little bit more room for Benitez to operate as a crosser of the ball? Is there any validity to the fact that that might be more useful for this team game in, game out than the box crashing goal threat ball carrier that Cicerone is?
I tend to think so. And I think there's an aspect to Cicerone's game where I don't want to call him a black hole, but there are moments where he'll get the ball, it's a little bit head down, and it's very hyper focused on,
Yeah,
I want to be the guy crashing the box and making that impact. Jameson isn't precious in that same way. Like he's averaging almost half a goal a game, but like you said, he's willing to cut in, he's willing to distribute to Benitez. That makes more sense. And you pair it with what we saw defensively against the Lights. Again, like you have to have the conversation when you're a team like Sacramento that wants to compete.
yeah. I do want to spin this out really quickly to the Vegas side, but I do want to also mention one statistic on Christian Prano specifically. This dude played 45 passes. Again, we're talking about a 10. As advanced up the field as anybody on this team. And he was circling in and linking play. 45 passes, he completed 91.1% of them. Like, that should not really happen for a guy in as advanced a role as he was in, which also might speak to the lackluster performance from Las Vegas. Very quickly on them, I think despite all the praise that we heaped onto them 2 weeks ago, this exposed what can happen when they don't have the ability to play the game at the pace they want to.
Yeah, and Sacramento very much had a game plan that was tailored to stopping the very particular thing that Las Vegas wants to do. I thought it was interesting the way that Nocerino set this team up with Valentin Noel in the pivot, Edison Iscona really dropping in like a false number nine. High on skill, almost predicated on this idea of, okay, we are Las Vegas and we're going to be able to hit these players at their feet and break the press quickly. What this was calling out for was a more physical presence that you could
Yeah.
find over the top. When they didn't have it, the only option was playing directly into the press. And I mean, you look at the result, you see the scoreline. That's indicative of a very bad game. I'm probably not saying enough about how poor the defensive structure was, the inability to track runners, a lot of ball watching. Like you can list off the problems again and again for Las Vegas in this
Yeah.
game, but I think they're maybe a piece short when push comes to shove in a particular game like this, which is going to matter as they get down the stretch and really try to compete for a playoff spot.
What's weird is it almost felt like Sacramento's physicality. It's like almost like the old college football thing where you look up and down the offensive line and you see all these guys 6'5", 350, 6'5", 350, right? It almost is like the size on paper of Sacramento and in practice, in fairness, intimidated Las Vegas into veering away from what they are, which is kind of shocking to me, based on how dogmatic and pragmatic they've been this year. It feels very antithetical to the mentality of a team that plays the way that they tend to like to.
They got sped up, and that is something, again, 2 weeks ago, we complimented Las Vegas for really not falling into that trap. So the fact that they kind of lost their heads and it compounded into a lot of early concessions. I don't know if it's a warning sign going forward because almost no team is as aggressive as Sacramento is,
Yeah.
but it's certainly a blueprint for an upcoming opponent that wants to be a little bit clever.
Yeah. In closing on this, Sacramento won the ball in the final third, I want to say 5 times in the first half, just to speak to that press kind of actualizing. Their two big wins this year, New Mexico on match they won, and this 5-0 in this game. Those have been the games they've taken the ball away in the final third the most and bifurcated, or that's not the right word. That means to split something in half. Circumvented, uh, thesaurus words, gotten around a midfield and needing that. Let's just say it as plainly as that. Yeah, the press can help you do that. So, elsewhere in the league, I think it might be a good time to talk about Birmingham, who made a big move this weekend to get a man who was a bit of a bit part in Tulsa, bringing in Lasso. This is the player we've been crying out for, John, for them to go out and get since the season started. And it finally feels like there's a clear picture for what Mark Briggs is doing, and progress is being made in Birmingham and the Magic City.
It was sort of my favorite situation that you get in this league where Birmingham has a game on Wednesday where they don't have Edwin Lasso. They sign him on Friday, then they're playing again on Sunday with him in the lineup. Very much a direct comparison of the before and after of how Briggs wants to use the talent in this team. And that Wednesday game that lost to Rhode Island, Tyler Pasher is coming off the right wing, but he's pretty much just dropping in somewhere between a 6 and an 8 in possession. And that requires Kobe Hernandez Foster or Jake Roof to kind of make these curling runs up the right to fill in. Those aren't players that can beat you on the dribble. They're not going to really cross and create danger. The system didn't make sense. Fast forward to Sunday, you've got a destroyer in the midfield. So you can put Tyler Pasher as a number 8, let him do all the same exploratory things, but he knows he's got the additional freedom. Meanwhile, you've got two proper wingers happening. Danny Trejo and Sebastian Tregarthen are giving you that presence, stretching the defense out. Lasso ends up with 13 duels contested and 13 passes into the final third. That balance across the shape starts to make a whole lot more sense. There's more transitional danger because of the way Lasso can win the ball back and allow this team to hit Ronaldo Damas off the top. Yes, it was only one goal for the Legion, but I thought the vision clicked into place in a way we hadn't yet seen, and that's very promising if you're Mark Briggs.
Yeah, and with Lasso, I think the front-footedness needs to be exemplified as well. This is a player that's played 41% of his passes forward this season, and given limited experience, right? Like, he's only attempted 65 on the year in total because of the lack of a role that he had in Tulsa by the end. But with that being said, I think in the attack, it's quite obvious that he is going to provide a connecting force that's going to help them get forward, something that they've lacked dropping between center backs this year. And again, we talk about the six and their role in the modern game and some of the splashier things that can be associated with that role in the post-Pep era, now that it's kind of been glorified a little bit. I think that these glue guy connective tissue players may be undervalued, because they don't do all the progressive carries and the fun stats and things that we like to try and highlight the unsung value. There's no stat to quantify. I'm going to cover the space and run the extra 10 yards for a wingback to get more pronounced in the attack, right? And that's what Lasso's theoretically here to do.
Absolutely. And I think it's an interesting statement on Tulsa's end of things as well, just to kind of level set there, where they want the progressive carries. They are very much interested in having two center mids that are going to get box to box and be very pronounced in that way. That's their decision. And I think that we can heap a lot of praise on Tulsa for the decisions they've made this year. But Lasso didn't fit the mold. He's very much a player that Mark Briggs values. And I think we saw why. Everything you mentioned, that coverage, that ability to let other players become more expressive while still providing a sense of vision and a sense of understanding from the deep spots invaluable to this setup. And I'm so interested to see how he continues to integrate what that means for someone like a Kobe Hernandez Foster, who I thought was really solid in 2024 and just hasn't found his footing. There's a chance he becomes a bit player, just given the
Yeah.
makeup of this midfield and given what Briggs wants.
Yeah. And there's also a chance that he finds a role as a long ball distributor playing in Ronaldo Damas, having less defensive pressure. But the fact that there are multiple pathways to being a good team now for Birmingham because Lasso is there, I think is the exciting part.
Yeah, and you gotta feel a little bit for Sam McElhatton, who came in to assumedly be the number six for this team. The coach gets fired. He's racking up red cards. But hey, it's a cutthroat business, and Lasso put up the numbers last year in Tulsa, clearly can still do that in Alabama. Yeah, I think he's going to be one of the signings of the season if things go
Yeah.
right there.
I'm excited to see what positive effect he might have for Ramiz Hamuda, who's been asked to step into a lot of weird spots, and maybe he's done that on his own accord, but now maybe is going to be asked to do a little bit less and build up, focus on the defensive development for a young player that, in the best case scenario, might be in contention to play for the U.S. national team at some point, right? Like that's the kind of ceiling that he has. Um, I think this is going to be good for him. Just looking up and down the team, and let's be very clear, they were the better team in this game between them and Detroit.
I think they got like five times the XG. They were pretty controlled.
That is accurate. It was 1.92 to 0.36, but it is a cruel game, and Detroit score a goal, Birmingham get a goal, and it finishes 1-1 on the day. I will also add this, that with Birmingham at this present moment, even though the results haven't been there, I think it's quite clear to see that the overall understanding of what everybody's being asked to do seems to be more succinct, right? Like the organization instantaneously improved, but it has improved, I think, most impressively every week with Briggs since he's gotten there. And this was the most drilled they've looked all year, I think, off the ball.
This team felt rudderless for the extended end to the Tommy Sohn era. So to see them come together like this and have that clarity of vision week in and week out, really promising.
Yeah. It all kind of manifests to me as well with Ronaldo Damas looks so engaged and energetic, running after the ball, pressing high. They almost score early off of a turnover, basically dispossessing the goalkeeper off a goal kick. Danny Trejo was unable to meet a lobbed cross across the goal mouth with the goal open to score that. But if you're getting that kind of effort out of Damas, then the only piece to me that has to fall into place is how does Danny Trejo exist at his best within this team? Because that still, despite signs against Tampa Bay, seems to be the thing that isn't quite there yet.
I think it's fascinating that Briggs has decided we're assigning this free central creative role to Tyler Pasher,
Yeah,
and it's going to be him, and Trejo is going to be a winger. There's an argument to make that in 2025, given their skill sets, Trejo might be better off as that free carrier who can pick it up and go at teams. Food for thought, but I feel like he's a little bit uncomfortable still in this deployment. He's the one player where I've not seen a market improvement under the new regime, and maybe that's waiting to come. Maybe he'll score a brace next week and really start to make sense. I'm curious how they find a balance between
yeah.
what they need defensively out of the wingers and what we know Trejo can provide on the break and in tandem with a talented forward like Ronaldo Damas.
It just seems right now like he has to do so much work to get close enough to goal to be what he has been, right? He was always a super narrow winger for Juan Guerra, and that was him making these, incisive slicing runs across the face of center backs is what he does when he can impact the game. And at this present moment, Enzo Martinez is in similar spots, and if he's going to get to those places, he has to come all the way from the touchline pretty deep, get all the way in field, and then finally he might get a chance after a 30, 40-yard sprint to receive some service and score, which again, that's not him at his best. So is there a world where they continue to play this 4-1-4-1 that they have played so far and he can fill that role? Or is it going to have to be a change of shape, or is he going to have to maybe not be a star man in this team?
I mean, the latter possibility feels increasingly likely. Like there's a chance that he just becomes a role player given how Briggs wants him to be used. But if it is a double pivot with Lasso and Hernandez Foster, you're using a 10 that's taking up less space than Enzo Martinez might be, and you're letting Trejo take up the positions where he's the most useful. That's arguably the best version of Birmingham.
Mm.
And I'm sure we'll see it down the road as this team continues to experiment. Because ultimately, they signed Danny Trejo for a reason. They wanted to have this double-headed monster up top. There's still the potential to make it happen if they're clever enough with the lineup choices and the tactical decisions, those spatial relationships that make a little bit more sense.
Elsewhere in the league, Charleston Battery absolutely pumped San Antonio FC 4-0. This is becoming a trend. Battery look really good, John Morrissey.
Battery do look really good. I mean, it's a thing we've talked about before, the 4-2-2-2 setup that they're running with most of the time this season. But I thought it looked particularly dominant against San Antonio. And I think it's kind of useful to frame this, at least at first, around the way that San Antonio was limited. They very much wanted to start in a 4-4-2 and drop Almir Soto between the center backs and then kind of fan out from there. Charleston's press was so good that they essentially couldn't do so whatsoever for the first 20 minutes of the game. And then from there, the batteries start to pile on offensively. We'll get into some of the specifics, I'm sure, but the way that the structure for Charleston allows them to instantly transition from defense into offense is just consistently oppressive. Like the use of the inverted wingers with Torres and Rodriguez, the
Mm.
way the forwards interact, everything about this system is so perfect to the talent on the team and the way they're organized, the relationships. Ben Pierman has this team playing at another level right now.
Yeah. So I'm going to walk through the results in the league since we clocked this transition to the 4-2-2 with JD Torres as a pseudo free eight wingback type. I think that's a description of the role that's fitting. That happened against Indy 11. That was back on April 19th, that game. And mind you, I believe this is now 5 consecutive victories in the league, 6 consecutive for Battery at this point, with the results against San Antonio. This is only the sample size that we've seen over the last 4 league games. I'm going to exclude the SC Naples loss and Silo, the DC United extra time loss 2-0 in the U.S. Open Cup. Against Indy 11, 3-1 win on the road. Then it is at home to Charleston Battery. This is with Aaron Malloy playing center back, so maybe a little bit of an outlier in that game. They still win 4-2. Sorry, Hartford. Tampa Bay, 3-1 this game. 4-0 against San Antonio. Level of competition needs to be factored for sure. San Antonio didn't have Mitchell Tainter. We know that the Delta is massive in performance when they do and do not have Tainter. He's serving a red card suspension in this game after 2 yellows against Oakland Roots. That being said, I would have thought at this point teams would have maybe found some answer for this tactical evolution for Battery. Slowed it down a little bit, cooled it off. It's actually had the opposite trajectory where it seems like they're getting better with every passing game as they rehearse and reform the style of play. They, without pause, have been the best team in the league this year.
I think what's incredible on the Charleston side in the past handful of weeks, they're doing it with Joey Akpinono and Michael Edwards as the center back pair. Edwards came into camp 2 weeks ago. Akpinono was expected to be a backup player. And I think you compare that to Lou City right now, they blinked against Hartford. They came into that game, they decided we're using Niall McCabe and running a three-man central midfield. And to do that against a team that is so utterly defensive and really been feckless on the counterattack, I understand if you're Danny Cruz, you're trying to make a statement, you want to be more controlled after a couple of mixed results. But it's very passive in a way that Louisville City just hasn't been at their best. Compare that to a team like the Charleston Battery that has decided we're running with two strikers. We are giving Torres the utmost freedom. We are so definitively stylish in the way we play the game. I think that's why I'm inspired to say Charleston is the best team in the league right now, and a team that to me comfortably feels like the favorite in the East and the championship at large.
It feels so fascinating how they've kind of naturally branched into the yin and yang to one another, where Louisville has been this system propelled team that has high level talent that enables the system to be the driver. And the margin has gotten thinner with the exit of a player like Wilson Harris, with the exit of a player like Elijah Weiner that allows them to maybe play without a 10 and still have that creation between him and Davila. That's now gone, right? So the system really is the star for Louisville this year in a way that it was not last year. Whereas Battery has evolved into this thing where they have the difference makers, and the thing that makes them good, at least right now, is that those difference makers are empowered by the system to be who they are, right? And that arms race, that Cold War-ish kind of relationism between those two teams that are far and away atop this league at present tense, I think is emerging as maybe the most interesting contrast between two teams in the league right now.
No, for sure. And the way you kind of set that up of Charleston has the stars, but the system is constantly forging them with opportunities, making defenses and opposition kind of faint one way and miss out on something on the other end. Lou City doesn't have that sense of danger. The attack at times feels genuinely almost idealist, which is something I never thought I'd be saying, thinking about how competitive Louisville would be in the preseason. And certainly some of it is the striker situation. We've devoted a lot of discussion to Philip Goodrum and Sam Gleadle, but I think particularly at the weekend, you felt this lack of side to side movement. I thought the forward line really didn't cause a lot of trouble for Hartford. Even like deep into this game, Louisville was sitting under the 10 shot mark, which is so rare to see in a game where they would have been highly favored. The late concession, say what you will about it, was probably unrepresentative of a match that they controlled by and large. But I don't know. There's a sense of confidence that's missing in Louisville that Charleston absolutely embodies every single time they hit the pitch.
Yeah. With Charleston right now, I think that can also kind of play out in the raising of the level of certain players, right? That maybe aren't necessarily cast in that role of the JD Torres, of the Cal Jennings, of the Andy Myers that we expect a lot from. Feels like the system has emboldened Arturo Rodriguez to have a bit of a renaissance this year. I am personally shocked that he's been able to keep out Rubio Rabin from a regular nailed on starting role for Charleston, but Arturo Rodriguez is really kind of hitting a stride right now for Battery, and as everything else around him rotates, it feels like he's a player that Ben Pierman has really trusted to carry them forward, and you're not getting that level of players now growing above themselves for Louisville at present.
Yeah, and I mean, think about this weekend in particular. Rodriguez is innately involved in that sequence that earns the go-ahead penalty, constantly causing trouble up that left side, knows when to let Chris Allen move ahead or engage Nate Dos Santos. The balance was unmistakable. And I think the map to him in the Louisville system is Ray Serrano, who's not even in the starting lineup. And you feel the lack of that for Lou City. They don't quite know how they want to weaponize him this season, which was just natural in 2024. That is a great comparison point of how one team is getting the most out of a really talented piece in Rodriguez, and Lou City kind of matches or lacks that matching presence.
Yeah. Like, let's again make this obvious. Arturo Rodriguez, for a lot of teams in this league, would be their best attacking piece, would be the driver of their attack. That is also true for Ray Serrano. Like, this is the elite of the elite, and these teams will have come into the offseason with the express intention, with some mind being paid to Rhode Island, we need to be able to beat those guys, right? And the courses they're taking right now, I just think we're going to have to wait a little bit for them to clash again. But that is becoming the prevailing drama and tension in the East, in my mind. There's a lot of really good teams in the East, but how Charleston and Louisville are starting to set the pace as things start to come together and form up now, and how those teams are going to evolve throughout the season to beat the other, that has my attention like nothing else really in the league right now.
It's interesting the way we frame this and are a little bit negative about Louisville when they are a team that's given up five
Yeah.
goals in 9 games. Like the floor is so high and the expectations are so high that when you have a run like this for Louisville City, where you're dropping points against somewhat lesser teams, it is a bit worrisome. But the level there is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt that it's going to come down to these two at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the reality is that it's good to have a high floor. That's what great teams do, is have a floor that is higher than most teams in the league ceiling on their best day. Louisville is that. The realization that the ceiling has to be in the stratosphere to win this race to the tape, I think is the thing that is the most exciting about this whole deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So, in framing all that, that's all well and good. Elsewhere around the league in the Western Conference, it's a much more muddled picture. We've known that from jump. We've talked about Sacramento. They should be the pacer car in this conference coming into the year. OC had a rough weekend. We expected a lot out of them. They lose 3-0 to New Mexico, who realistically might be that one carrying the torch. Phoenix Rising, though, consecutive wins and from a very dreary outlook a couple weeks ago, have rebounded despite not being at full fitness or strength. They beat Monterey Bay in this game, and I think it's time to start having a real discourse about what does it look like if Rising figure this out.
I know you've got some points about the back end. I think the choices that Pamadou made in terms of the midfield and the press in this specific matchup against Monterey were pretty fascinating. Monterey Bay is a team that really wants to build out patiently, drop their center mids in waves, and goad you out of your shape, then hit a ball over the top into an Elijah Paul, a Luka Ivanovic, someone in that mold. The way that Phoenix pressed in the 4-1-4-1, let Noble Okello and Hope Abievu really get in your face, track into the opposing box, never let those patterns develop. That's the reason that Monterey Bay didn't put a single shot on target in this game. But Phoenix got to the second half. They knew they needed to change something up to be able to get a goal and get 3 points. Okello, who I thought was fantastic defensively, comes out of the game for teenage Jamison Ping, who starts completing passes, making things flow with that little bit more crispness. And that's how Phoenix gets over the line. That is excellent management. That's a deep understanding of the players you've got available and the situation at hand in the game. To me, in a game that was promising in a lot of ways for Phoenix Rising, a decision like that stands out.
Yeah, I think that there's a physicality that's been baked into this now with Aso Senge, what he's brought in. It appears that they've gotten that right. I don't think it's overreacting to say from the limited sample size that we've had so far, he is what they need because of how much his physicality can just kind of absorb to give you some control in rest defense. 7 clearances in this game. He's big. He wins everything in the air. And I think that gives them the bedrock for Paw to kind of experiment through the matchups, right? And play those games. And when, hopefully, Pop Boy comes back at full fitness, you then all of a sudden have the most physically imposing partnership of center backs, I think. I don't, that feels correct, right? Like that's the most athletic, physically imposing center back partnership in the league, right?
The Dome, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to win everything in the air. JP Scarce is there also as well to impose some physicality. And with that trio, I think that allows for everything else to kind of work around it, which we've already highlighted as the most dynamic, explosive, attacking assembly in the division. And by the way, they're still without Charlie Dennis. If they are able to find that level of organization in this moment in time in their season before all that starts, those planets align, if you will, you start to think about, okay, well, what is realistically the best they can do? And I think that's winning the West. I've kind of withheld that this whole year, but seeing them consistently get a couple results in a row which didn't feel like something that was super possible for the year just with how erratic bipolar they were. That feels like it's on the table for them now with how open the West is. I think there's a world where Rising carve through this opening and maybe really contend to win the Western Conference. That is way out in front of my skis, but that's how strongly I feel about what they can be.
If you talked to me a month ago, in the wake of that game where they beat San Antonio in San Antonio on national TV, in a match that was really defined by that dynamism of Sacco and Margarita, those sorts of players, I would have honestly told you the floor for Phoenix is probably dead last in the West, but the
Yeah,
ceiling is something higher. You bring in a Senge, you get JP Scarce doing what he's doing at the number 6 spot. I think the floor is a lot higher to kind of bring that point back from some of the earlier discussion. Phoenix has made a meaningful decision and a meaningful improvement to the way that this defense is organized, just in terms of the sheer personnel involved, that allows them to control a game that, frankly, I think they would have struggled against this Monterey approach. And I mean, heck, we
they
saw it a couple
have.
months
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
Yeah, like they did
did. It was
struggle the
both.
first time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
the difference, match over match, comparatively, is a huge deal, and I think it owes a lot to those players that were real standouts this weekend.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They are always going to generate chances. There's not going to
Yeah.
be a game this year where they don't have 3, 4, 5 shots on target minimum. The finishing is going to drop in and out. I think that's been Remy Cabral can be a streaky finisher. Darius Formella we know can be a streaky finisher. Um, that's going to come and go. Joe Margarita is going to have games where he's not fit, where he's away on international duty. This is never going to be a clean picture. I think the fact that they have so much attacking talent, they're going to generate chances. I've never really worried about that. It's whether or not they can consistently not kill themselves in transition that will determine how good they can be. And now, where it didn't seem like that was a possibility early, it kind of does now. I don't know if Carl Saint will remain at center back either. That's a curiosity as well. He and Skiers will have a real battle on their hands for who is going to occupy that number 6 shirt when everybody is fit and firing. But, Jaeger Cup coming up against New Mexico, a big national spotlight game against Las Vegas. If they go out and they feel tailor-made to really give Las Vegas some problems, Las Vegas also feels tailor-made to exploit their weaknesses. So if they can make it 3 wins in a row in the league, I think we've got to really open up the dialogue as to whether or not they're the scariest team in the West.
Yeah, it's what you said about the chance creation. The upside in this attack is unmatched in the West for sure. It's just a matter of keeping your nose clean at the back and seeing where that potential can take you.
Percentage chance in your mind right now that they finish in the top 2 spots in the Western Conference. I know you hate that I just did that.
I do. I'm gonna put it at 50, which is kind of a cop-out answer, but hey, the West is wide open. Which teams feel like they've got the upside? I have a hard time saying that Sacramento and Phoenix aren't the two upside teams in this conference.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing that should not be glossed over with them, there's just a resonant spirit with this team. Like there is an aura, there is a vibe, there is some intangible thing where it feels like when they can catch the groove of a game, they offer something that is so insatiable, unstoppable, just enjoyable from the neutral perspective. I don't know. It's hard not to get behind them.
And I'm guilty of falling into the trap of Phoenix Rising plays exciting soccer, and I want that to succeed.
Yeah.
And I think like you compare that to a team like El Paso that is awesome on the counterattack, but spends a lot of time being passive in games. Passive is never a word you would use to describe cause system or the Phoenix identity. And I don't know, maybe that's my dumb fault in this whole thing is that I just lean into that. But hey, I would like to see Phoenix do well if they keep playing like this.
Yeah. You brought up El Paso. Let's do a brief little dialogue on them. Took it on the chops, had a lead against Austin FC, let it slip away. That could have thrown this team into disarray with the momentum that they were carrying into that fixture, how big of a deal it was, having never really done anything in the Open Cup before. 1-1 draw, super physical. Tulsa takes the lumps out of you. Indy 11 is not in a great place. But to go and handle business, to win 3-1, again speaks to an El Paso team that is on a positive trend line this season that feels sustainable. And I just want to say, I think Armando Moreno is in that tier with the Cal Jennings, with the JD Torres, with the Abdul Latif Abukora in the attacking assembly for Loudon. And we're talking about Armando Moreno at this present moment. Again, over the last month, it's hard for me to find a player that I think has been better than him. He's got peers, but better than him, not really doing it for me.
I mean, Andy Cabrera has an argument to make in that neighborhood, honestly.
Yeah, I would argue that Andy Cabrera is not doing any of this without what Armando Moreno is doing for this team. I think that's the broader point. Is he deserves a lot of credit for what Baby Cabrera is doing.
I'm mostly playing devil's
Sure.
advocate because I think you're right about the way that Moreno can dribble past you, the way he has this gravitational effect, constantly probing for space up that left side. No one has better timing on the counter.
Oh
Like
yeah,
Moreno just has this sixth sense for catching defenders out, really good about reading body momentum and finding this moment to accelerate when you're least expecting it and least able to recover. That buys the space that Cabrera has taken advantage of to pick up the goals and assists.
yeah,
Moreno is someone who's kind of run hot and cold over the course of really his entire USL career. This feels like a system that is built to fit his talents and a system that is willing to sit back, kind of bait and switch you, rope a dope you, force you to get overeager and push too far ahead. And that's when Moreno strikes. That's when the chances come.
yeah.
It's clever coaching on the part of Wilmer Cabrera, frankly. And I think it's a maximization of what Armando Moreno can be in this league.
Yeah, I think he's got like it's almost ironic doesn't feel like the right term, but like it just feels why is he so good in hold up play? Like other than the obvious, like he's smaller, he's lower to the ground, he's hard to get off the ball, but they've unearthed this central node for their counterattack where he can be the backboard at what is he, 5'6"? Um, just so good about finding the leverage points, the awkward places to put himself in to receive the ball. And then they're Dribbly Boy FC. Like they run at people. They want to take you on, and that confidence again just kind of flows to the whole team.
Yeah, I mean, look at the lines of this team. Ricky Ruiz, Memo Diaz, Gabby Torres. Everybody on this El Paso roster wants to go at you and be positive when they get the chance. Again, like there's an understanding of we can't be that team all the time. There's a real value put on structure within the locomotive lineup. But man, at their best, they can be expressive and exciting. And yeah, I mean, you play the percentage game with them. I would bet good money that they're going to be a top four team when push comes to shove at the end of the season.
Yeah, if they're doing what they're doing right now, I would bet
Yeah,
on this working over the long term. A lot of other teams, but again, it comes and it goes, and that's what this weekend
sure.
so I think teaches us is that it's really easy to buy into two or three consistent results, but it is so hard to do the thing that you want to do week in, week out. And when that faith gets shaken in your principles, what is your response? The best teams will have it be an aberration for a week and then are able to just buy back in fully the next week and provide the proof of their own concept, right? El Paso literally has just done this. We saw it in real time with them having a tough result against Austin, MLS opposition, whatever. 1-1 draw against Tulsa. Back on the horse. Take it to Indy. Do what you do. On to the next, right? That's what really good teams, what top four teams end up doing is not having those downturns turn into 3, 4 games that really throw your season into disarray. And like that is the question. Can El Paso avoid those little troughs?
Yeah. Which traditionally has been the constant struggle of Wilmer Cabrera coached teams. So if they continue to extend this streak for the next 3, 4 weeks, I think that's very meaningful.
Yeah. You tell me, you're the historian of this league. Has a Wilmer Cabrera coach team ever like caught a vibe like this though before?
There were moments when Rio Grande Valley had Taylor Davila running the show up the middle. I mean, Ricky Ruiz was very good. They had this hot streak at the end of one of those seasons where Christian Pinzon came in and was a man possessed, where it was very El Paso-esque, right? Like you had some of that vibe and energy and you this quick strike ability, but it never felt replicable. Like it felt like they were
Yeah.
pulling off something that felt fleeting and ephemeral. This feels systematic and designed in a way that is so much more promising. Like they've got the aura, they've got the energy, but they know how to generate it
Yeah,
on an ongoing basis.
100%. I think that's so well put. And then the curiosity to me at this stage is there anything in maybe taking the risk of destabilizing that and adding a piece, right? Is there a nine out there that you think can really move the needle for you and lock down that spot that Beto Avila has filled in? But those performances have been uneven because, again, he's not ever been a guy who can be the nine, capital T, right? So we'll see. El Paso's been an aggressive ownership group at times before. So is there a Johnny Rodriguez move in it for them? Are they going to? Yeah, that seems to be the standard now. SC Tulsa did it, right? So we'll see if they get aggressive and try and pursue other interests in terms of player personnel going forward. Do want to very quickly touch on Tampa Bay because this feels like a new rock bottom for them. 3-0 to Rhode Island. I thought that it was maybe coming around, and it turned out it was, what is it, the dusk before the dawn? Can you have a dawn before the dusk?
Yeah, you're testing my knowledge at the time of day. It's certainly a darkness for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So they fall 3-0 in that one. I don't know if you have any comments beyond what we've just said, but yeah.
I mean, the big caveat in this game is that Lewis Hilton doesn't play a minute and they're still missing Cammy McPherson. That matters. But you looked at this team, you saw them switching back into the 3-5-2, which was a very classic Tampa Bay shape. I thought it was certainly bold to like bench Manuel Arteaga, say we're putting up Leo Fernandez as an inverted wingback. Like there were a lot of strong choices from Steve
Yeah.
Coleman that in theory should have improved things. And Tampa Bay just couldn't get out of their own half.
Yep.
I thought they looked absolutely tepid and build. Rhode Island dictated where that match was played. That first goal, which was admittedly like a lightning bolt from Clay Holstad, but a moment where Holstad, who, if there's one thing on the scouting report, it's don't let him get on his right foot on the edge of the box. The Tampa Bay central midfielders parting like the Red Sea and letting that happen. There's something just about this defense and about this midfield where they can't get out of their own way. They are going to make three or four really bad mistakes over the course of a match.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Clay Holstead, zone 14. I think to myself, in his own head, he says, his internal monologue, I have become death, destroyer of worlds, and I'm going to punch a hole in the universe right now. Um, and this time he punched a hole in the opposition. So that works out pretty well for him on the day. We got a couple other games. I'm going to give you one that you can pick between Loudoun and Miami, Tulsa and Lexington, Springs and Pittsburgh, and New Mexico and OC. I think that's the full canvas. You get to talk about one of those games. Go.
In Miami. They come into this game toe to toe, 4-4-2 versus 4-4-2 against a Loudoun team that entered as the favorite in the Players' Shield race. And they look genuinely like not even hedging, like the better
Yeah.
team in this matchup. The poise of Mercado and I think Romero in that midfield, unbelievable, never threatened by the press. The way that Lucas Milano really had this free reign from the left side and was constantly cutting in. I mean, you think about that break goal where he's getting inside, drawing both center backs, playing in Bonfiglio. That's unreal, and that's what this Miami team is designed to do. I thought they were very effective defending Abacora as well. A much deeper use of Vasquez on the right wing, really effectively leveraging his pressing shadow to make it hard for Abacora to get useful touches in the areas where he's most dangerous. Jonathan Ricketts stepping up from right back as well.
Mm,
Everything about it was organized defensively, but so expressive, so expansive as whenever they got the ball back. They're fun to watch, man. Like this team is genuinely a good soccer team. And it's surprising, but I think this is the match where you have to look at it and say Miami's for real.
4 games unbeaten for Miami SC in the year of our Lord Josh Perez 2025. What is happening? They've won 3 of their last 4.
Yeah, they're actually great. I mean, great is a strong word. They're
Oh, they are.
actually
They
a
are great.
competent soccer team that, like, there is a universe where Miami gets a home playoff game, and I would not be shocked. Like, if they finish above North Carolina or Detroit, I could see it. They've got the talent. It's a weird roster. It's a roster where a lot of these guys are still unfamiliar, but they're coming together.
It's a weird roster. You mean it's an Argentine roster, is what you mean.
Yeah, like this team could have been playing in like the Argentine third tier last year, and no one would have batted an eye.
It would be roster compliant in Argentina
Yeah, yeah.
with homegrown players. So, quick shout out NCFC, 3 wins. Good job, guys. Three in a row. Go Lex Anderson. Yeehaw. Let's go. Let's get it. Yeah. Okay. I think that's a show. We said the things. Goodbye, everybody. The soccer's on this weekend. You should go and watch it, and we'll talk to you later, kids.